everyone, Jen Roque here at stampcampwithjen.com. Today I'm going to show you how to make this gorgeous fall pumpkin floating background or floating frame background card. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So for this set we're using the Harvest Hellos Cling Stamp set from the annual catalog. This came out last year in the holiday catalog. It's one of my favorite fall sets. I use it so much. And then we're also going to be using the Apple Builder punch that goes with it. So I've gone ahead and punched out pumpkins and leaves for our card. So you're going to stamp them in Tuxedo Black Memento ink, and you're going to need about 12 to 14 leaves and 7 pumpkins and stems. So the pumpkins you're going to stamp out, you're going to stamp them in the black on pumpkin pie cardstock. What I did was I just cut some 2-inch strips here. Now it's important to note when you stamp them, you want to stamp them so that they're side by side on your strip. And that's because when you go to punch, you're going to have this leaf and stem that you can't avoid. So if you were to punch them this way, you're going to end up punching the stem and the leaf and part of your pumpkin. So that's why you go side to side, so you don't worry about that interference from your punch. So, and then for the stems, we punched out 7 stems from the early espresso cardstock. Now there is a little stamp in here for the stem, but I didn't feel like it was necessary, so I just punched the stem. So I went ahead and glued most of them. I'm just going to show you real quick though. For the stem, remember for pumpkins, the fat side goes towards the pumpkin. If it were an apple, it would go the other way with the fat side up, but for pumpkins, the fat side goes down. So what you're going to do is on the fat side, you're just going to take a little dot of glue, and then you're going to put it on your pumpkin. Okay, we'll let those dry for a second. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take, I have a piece of very vanilla cardstock. This is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And what we're going to do is we're going to layer our pumpkins. We're going to start in the center here, and we're going to layer everything in a certain pattern to try to get it ready for our card here. So what I did is I just do a little row here and then do a couple pumpkins on the side. It looks like my fingers are a little sticky from the glue. And then we'll do the same over here. There we go. Now it's important to remember when you're doing this technique, you can switch it up however you want, but try to keep like medium size or medium and small die cuts, because if it's too big, it's really not going to give you that same effect as it does with all of the variations of the small and the large cuts like you have here. So I'm just kind of putting these in. I had a lady in my stamp camp class kind of put the leaves like this around the stems, and I thought it was really cute. So I'm going to do that for mine today. And you can kind of move them around how you want. If you notice they're a little too close together and you kind of want a little bit more room for the leaves, you can kind of adjust as you need to, because it's not stuck to anything. We're just placing these right now. Random piece of cardstock there. Yeah, I kind of liked that, how the leaves were around the stems like that. I thought that was really cute. Okay, maybe move that way. So you need about 12 to 14. You may not use all of them, but at least 12. And then you need 7 pumpkins and stems. So I think that's good. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our Glad Press and Seal, and we're gonna get a piece that is big enough to cover our base. Tear that off. Now try to keep it as flat as possible so it doesn't stick to itself, and lightly lay it over the top pressing it down so that it doesn't move your pieces. And now take your finger and go in between all those pieces onto the card base to really make sure that it sticks to that very vanilla base that we use to put everything on. That way your leaves especially don't move around from the press and seal. Now I'm going to do my best to show you how to keep this from tearing any of your pieces. Now inevitably you're probably going to have a little bit of tearing, but that's okay. That's just kind of the nature of the beast with this card. We did this in my class and I had so many people, all of my Stamp Camp ladies were very patient and very sweet, but so many of their cards tore and I could not figure out why. I tried, you know, popping it in the freezer on the last class and seeing if that would help. I've tried using an embossing buddy with a powder thinking that would resist, but that didn't really work either. So I think I may have figured it out. We're gonna try it in this video. I tried it right before coming on here too. So I'm gonna try doing this just a slightly different way, and I think that might help keep our press and seal from tearing. Okay, so now we've got it on the base pretty good. So now we're gonna lift it up, we're gonna flip this over, and we're just gonna trim all around the edge here. And what that does is that makes sure that your frame that we're making is the exact same size as what our card front is going to be, because this is really a the same size as a standard card front, as the same size as the card front that we're using today. So we're just going to trim these off. Oh, and that looks like it's coming apart from the base, and that's okay if that happens. Just go back over it with your finger and then lift it back up, and then see, I actually need to trim it a little bit better. And you may end up having some of these pieces that just, like some of the leaves, when we go do it, it's just going to be they're going to be like little slivers and they're going to come off anyway, and that's okay. Almost done. Okay. So it looks like that when you've got your card base. Now you can flip it back over and see if there's any little pieces you need to trim. Trim some of those off, but we could trim it again towards the end also, so that's good. Okay, so now what we're gonna do, whoops, we're gonna keep it on the press and seal and carefully peel that base off. Okay, so we've got our pumpkins on our press and seal. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we are going to take our rectangle die here. So I've got my stitched rectangles here. I'll have the picture in my PDF as well, but I have them numbered for number's sake, for reference sake, from largest to smallest, so 1 through 8. So we're going to use our number 5. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're going to use this die cut right here. We're going to bring up our Stampin' Cut emboss machine. Okay, and we are going to use, now remember, this is available September 1st if you'd like to order it. We're going to use the sandwich with the thin die. So on our number 1 plate here, it's got the sandwich. We need our number 1, number 2, and 2 number 3s. So we've got our number 1. And our number 2 plate also has the sandwich on it because it's part of the sandwich. So it emphasizes the sandwich, I guess, or it tells you again to use it. And then one of our number 3s. And then we're gonna put our pumpkins down with our rectangle. And we're going to place that over and run the pumpkins through the machine. Now, this does press the press and seal onto the pumpkins, and that is inevitably, you're just gonna have that extra pressure and that extra pressing down on your pumpkins, but we're gonna see if by removing that base, because before I was keeping that vanilla base on and was running it through, and I actually did cut everything, but the press and seal is so sticky. I have to remove it. So having that vanilla base kind of gave you that extra layer where it was really pressing everything together. So I think by removing that, we should have less tearing. So we're going to kind of test it out a little bit here. And so if we very slowly and very carefully go from the corner and try to remove the pumpkin, like I said, inevitably you're going to have a little bit of tearing, but I think this is going to kind of minimize it a little bit. Yeah, that's a lot better than before. So we're not going to tear that off all the way, but I'm just showing you how it did work a lot better than what I was doing before. But you really have to go really slow and really careful taking this off. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put a bunch of dimensionals on the back of this card. And the biggest thing with this, with this frame is making sure that you have the dimensionals on everything, on the pumpkins and on the leaves, and making sure that you have it around the inside and outside border of the frame so that it really sticks and raises evenly and gives you that frame look. So don't be afraid. You're going to be using a lot of dimensionals for this card, and that's okay. You really need it though for that even lift all around. Whoops, all around the card. It's a little sticky. You gotta be careful with that. And then you don't need to worry about the stems because the stems we glued to the pumpkins. So you don't need to worry about making sure that there's dimensionals on the back of the stems because they're connected to the pumpkins. So when we raise the press and seal off of it, it won't be a problem. Oops, see? The press and seal is so sticky. But that is a good thing for the most part. It's a little nerve-wracking when you go to take it off of your pumpkin images here, but I'll show you. You just have to go really careful and really slow, and it should all work out just fine. My Stamp Camp ladies are so great. They're so patient and so sweet, and I felt so bad because so many of their cards were tearing in class, and we thought it was the humidity, but I've done it a couple times in the house since then. I actually started making this video a minute ago and I had to stop because my pumpkins were tearing, and I thought, well, if I put it in the fridge or the freezer, that'll help. And it does kind of help. The humidity does make it worse, but it doesn't really completely solve your problem. So I think taking this base layer off and not having so much pressing up against the pumpkins when you run it through the embossing machine, I think might have been the trick. And then, like I said, you really have to go really slow and kind of put your finger right up against the press and seal when you take it off to make it not peel half of your images off, because that's very frustrating. Okay, we're just about there. I'm just trying to make sure I have good coverage, and I got to get these little leaves here. I'm going to cut some little pieces off of these guys. Like this guy, I can probably get him to stick, but like these little leaves, these little slivers at the top, more than likely they're not gonna make it, and that's okay. That just happens. Okay, get this little piece up here. But we want to try to save as much as we can because that variation is really neat. So I'm gonna get one more piece here, right there. Okay, so I might put a little bit right there too, actually, just to kind of reinforce that frame. Okay, so now we're gonna set this aside, and I'm gonna show you how to do some embossing and inking with your embossing folder to make a really cool background effect. So we're gonna grab our, this is the Pinewood Planks 3D embossing folder. Now this is actually the Dynamic Textured Impressions embossing folder that retired in June of 2019. So with the new machine, they don't have the sandwiches for these folders, but these folders are a little bit thicker than even the 3D folders. So I asked some of my fellow pals, and the wonderful Julie DiMatteo helped me out, and she said that when you use these, because they're so much thicker, the sandwiches are a little bit different. So what you do is, I'll bring our embossing machine up and I'll show you real quick, is for the, where is it, using the standard embossing folder. So it's the same sandwich minus one of these number 3 plates. So you're really just using one number 1 and one number 3. And we'll do that in just a minute. But first, we're going to, and to tell that it's one of those dynamic impressions, if you see the Sizzix and the Stampin' Up, this little Sizzix down in the corner kind of gives you a hint that that's one of those folders. So what we're going to do now is on the opposite side, not the Sizzix side, but the top side here, we are going to take some crumb cake ink, and we're just going to put it on our folder and rub it back and forth until we get an even distribution of ink. And then what I like to do is I like to take my cinnamon cider and put it on the bottom here, and then smush the top over on top of it. So now we'll bring our embossing machine up. And like I said, only one number 1, or the one number 1 plate, and then one of our number 3 plates on top, and that's it, because it's such a thick folder. So now we're going to run this through. And then, voila! Isn't that so cool? You've got an extra layer of color and it looks like real wood. I just think that's so neat. And such a cool effect to do with your folder. So, all right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna lay our border, our little pumpkin border, on top of this wood piece here. Now, the first couple times I made this, it was really frustrating at the time, but funny now that I think about it. But I actually took all of the dimensionals off at once and then was like fighting with the dimensionals while I was trying to put this whole border on, because the press and seal is very flexible, so it moves around all over the place and it sticks to itself. So I don't know why I thought that was a good idea to try to do it all at one time. It was really a hassle and a struggle. So after I did it like 3 or 4 times, you thought I would have learned quicker, but I didn't, but that's okay. I decided, you know, if you just take a section and take the backing off of one section, that might make it a little bit easier, and it really does. So that's what we're gonna do right now. So I'm just peeling off the backing of all my dimensionals for this one section. Right here is the little last piece. Okay, so now it's easier. I can just line this little section up around the border, around the edges of my cinnamon cider. And now I have a section that's stable, and I can flip this over. Oh, and that was already stuck, apparently. That's good. So now I can take this middle pumpkin section, and that's a good sign too that that leaf's already coming off. That means that we've got hope for this card. I don't know why, like I didn't really have a hard time the first couple times I did it, but I know I shared my previous card and people were saying they were having problems with tearing, and I don't know if maybe as it gets older it gets stickier or what the deal is, but I have definitely had some. I mean, my press and seal is kind of old, but I don't know if that really makes a difference. I don't know why it would, but it's definitely a very sticky product, but it's really cool to use for various crafting techniques, and I really like it for this. I think it's really fun, and it's a really cool technique. So I wanted to do a lot of trial and error and make sure I can come up with a way for you guys to do it without getting real frustrated and spending a lot of time on something and then having it get all torn up, because nobody wants that. That's irritating. So I think by doing it this way, we're gonna have better luck than my sweet Stamp Camp girls, which thank you ladies if you're watching. You guys were so amazing, and I really appreciate you having all that patience and helping me trying to figure out some trial and error with this card, and hopefully this method will be much better for everyone. So let's see here. Get this last little bit. All right, so now the moment of truth. Again, oops, my little pumpkin. It's not quite there. We'll trim him, that's okay. Okay, so again, very, very slowly and carefully, I'm keeping my finger close, my peeling finger close to the edge as I'm peeling, and I'm having much better results than we did. So I think that is the trick, is we got to take our base off before we die cut so there's not as much pressing against the pumpkins. And then just really going, see, you're gonna have, I've got a little bit of tearing on this leaf, but that's okay. I'm just gonna go really slow. Really slow. And you can cut pieces off if that's easier than trying to deal with this big frame piece. But see, this is actually already so much better. My poor ladies were having so much tearing and frustration at this point. This is already a million times better than what bad luck we had at class. So this is the way. So I am going to tear some of this off, actually. That way I have sections. So again, really slowly, just pull it up. Like I said, you can see, like on my press and seal, there's a little bit from my leaf, but that's okay. That's just, it's inevitably gonna happen. But kind of keep your finger close to where you're peeling and just go slow. That's the best advice I can give you with this. And it'll come out beautifully. And then you can use, like I'm using my left hand to kind of hold the images in place while I'm slowly peeling the press and seal. And my stems, for some reason, keep wanting to tear. So at the bottom, this one kind of tore, so I repositioned to kind of peel from the top, and that seemed to help a little bit. But again, you're probably going to get some tearing. Just be patient. Try not, see my leaf tore again, but that's okay. Just go slow, and the rest of it's good. My pumpkin's good there. Yeah, see that little leaf? We didn't have the dimensionals under him because he was a little tiny fella. See, this is so much better. So that's the trick that we found. It's not embossing, buddy powder, or freezing. It's just going slow, and if something starts to tear like you don't want it to, just kind of use a different section. Start from a different angle and kind of go real slow. Now the humidity, I don't know, that may have had something to do with my card class. Everybody's having torn, but I really think this base too, by not having the base under the pumpkins when we die cut, that rectangle really made a difference. So, but I'm still having some tearing. I'm going to take some of this off actually. And that's okay, it's gonna happen. But it's not nearly as bad as what we had in class, which is good. So this leaf is tearing for some reason, so I'm gonna kinda try to go from a different angle and see if I can get him to not tear so much. Yeah, see, I just kind of put my nail next to it when I was pulling, and that kind of stopped the tearing process for that leaf. So this really is, it's a gorgeous project, but it's one that you really have to have a lot of patience for. And like I said, I actually started working, see my leaf is starting to tear on that edge again, so I'm gonna go in from a different angle here. But yeah, this is actually my second attempt at this video because like I said, I tried to do this earlier thinking the freezer method was going to work, and apparently that wasn't the best method. It really didn't do much. It's really all about how much pressure you have on the embossing folder when you're running that center plate through, and that was what was causing the issue. So this is, like I said, this is a million times better than what we did in class. This isn't sticking nearly as much. Okay, just about done. Again, go real slow. Kind of keep your fingers close to where you're pulling the tear and tape so you don't get as much tearing. And, oh, we did it. Yay! So that is the frame. Isn't that so fun? So now you can flip it over if you need to. It doesn't look like we need to trim really anything off the back. Maybe a little bit on this side. I'll trim so it's even. Okay, so we'll keep that here. So I have this left over from my first attempt at my video, so I'm not going to recut this again, but I just want to show you what you need to do is you need to take a piece of black glitter paper, this is in the new mini catalog, and line up your dies from your Playful Alphabet dies into a section, and then that's how you know how big to cut that section. So as you can see, they don't really make a lot of sense. I just have all the letters that I need to cut out on that piece. And then what I did was I laid the black glitter paper on top of a piece of the foam adhesive sheets, and then I just cut around, and then you'll take the backing off because it's a sticker basically. It's double-sided, it's adhesive on both sides, and you stick the black glitter paper on top, put it on your embossing machine, line up your letters, and roll it through. So it did cut really well. Again, you only have to do it one time. It didn't cut through the back, but that's okay because this is the back sticker, so we really don't need it to cut all the way through the back. We just needed it to cut through the letters in the foam, which it did. So we have Happy Fall for our letters. So I am going to start with the P in the center just to make sure everything's lined up, because I'm one of those people that I can't stand when letters aren't even and it's all kind of wonky. That drives me crazy. So I like to start in the center and then kind of work my way out. And I just love this foam adhesive. Now I've used a bunch of this already because I've been using it for classes, and it comes with 6 sheets in a packet, and I'm almost out of my packet, so I need to order another one. But most people that aren't holding classes, more than likely this is going to last you a lot longer than it did for me. I've had it for probably about 2 months now, and I need a second pack. But like I said, for most people, it'll last you a lot longer than 2 months. So there we go, P, and then we'll do F. We'll go kind of in between the H and the A. And then the A and the 2 L's. All right, so now all we need to do is we're gonna take our 5.5 by 8.5 cinnamon cider card base. We're gonna fold it in half and burnish with our bone folder. Always make that nice tight crease. Okay, and then this is just gonna go right on here. So I'm gonna get some Seal. Actually, I'm gonna use a Seal Plus because of the ridges in the embossing folder. I think it might need just a little bit more hold. Okay. And so make sure it's open the right way. I have a tendency to do things upside down. And then, whoops, just banged my head on the camera. Sorry, guys. And that's it. And we have our beautiful floating frame pumpkin fall card. So I really hope you enjoyed that. I hope that you got some good tips for how to do this without getting it to tear. And make sure that you stop by again tomorrow. I'm gonna have another example to show you what we did with this. Let's see if I still have my centerpiece here. Oh, yep, here it is. So this centerpiece that we cut out, I'm gonna make another card with this tomorrow. So make sure that you stop by and see what we make. All right, guys, well, I really hope you enjoyed this card. I hope that you won't be too intimidated by it and that you'll give it a try yourself. If you enjoyed this or have any questions, please feel free to leave me a comment below. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a video. All right, guys, well, I'll see you soon and have a great day. Happy stamping. Bye.